I'm Sister Emma Marie Stillman, and this is Sister Luella Hickman. And we're here chatting about Luella's books. She has written two, and the first is Writing the Stars. And we're going to be selecting some selections from here, and Sister Luella is going to be reading them for us. But first of all, most of us are not too familiar with the origins of poetry and how it comes to be, and who is called to that. So we'd like to delve into some of those topics. So, Sister Luella, why is poetry important to you?
Well, because first of all, it expresses how I feel and what I'm thinking. However, that's not the only answer, even though it's a good one. And that is, I could say the same, why is my friend, my daughter, my son, my husband important to me? Because I care about that person. And that person is just important to me because she or he is important. Yet poetry is important because I get to see through other people's eyes. I have poems about the First Peoples, the Indigenous. I have a little poem about a child who was blinded when she was born, and this kind of thing. How would these people feel? How would they react? How would they think?
Okay. Sister, would you mind reading a poem for us?
Okay. One I'm giving voice to is giving voice to the Indigenous women. There's basically an epidemic of Indigenous women who are being kidnapped and murdered here in the United States. And I want to see through their eyes how they feel. Giving voice to the thousands of missing and murdered Indigenous wisdom, both in the United States and Canada. Perhaps if there had been fewer faces with one or two images that the public could not unsee, with names that would lead to protests, those costly catalysts for change. But there were too many of us for rage. We were the sacred life bearers, like our mother, the earth. And with our deaths, we will no longer nurture or create beauty. We will never be the beautiful old ones, the wisdom guides, as well as the two-spirit women among us, likewise life-giving and creative. We vanish, shot, strangled, beaten, raped, then left to die alone. This was our fear. This is now our grief. There are too many of us for rage.
Very, very picturesque. Certainly we get that picture. It comes across. And you're an advocate for those ladies, and we're certainly going to pray for them. We know, and those who are violating them. And where did you find inspiration?
Just about anywhere. Sometimes I read something, or think something, or there's just something that clicks. In fact, or I mull over an idea or phrase for days, or sometimes just as I fall asleep at night, boom, I have an idea, and I have to get up at 10 or 11 o'clock at night and go to my computer, open it up, and start typing. I found one inspiration from all places, the Corpus Christi collar, and it has to do with vandalism. And the title of the poem is, and it was taken from the title of the article in the newspaper, South Texas Farmers' Cotton Bales Slashed by Vandals, August 21st, 2019. Like a knife to gigantic throats, the 15 rolls of cotton were slit. The night, like dark blood, poured over the bare fields. What stars there were watched in their silence. unlike the many onlookers who heard the voiceless in their screaming. What I like to do is take an idea and then take it to the next level. Use these cotton bales as a kind of metaphor and then move it up a notch.
In other words, give them personality.
Well, in a way, personality. Sometimes, yes, that is a poetic technique, but also kind of give it as an image and then take it, add to it.
Yes. Okay. Well, is poetry a calling, you think?
I would think so. I think in a sense, poetry, like all art, music, dance, is a gift. But it's kind of hard to say no when it's there and it's something I can't do.
So it just comes to you?
It just comes to me. And I let the poem do the talking. I just am there to sit and listen to what I have to say or the poem has to say to me.
And
then
sometimes
just
you
write
get surprised, huh?
Oh, do I ever? Yes, you have a good point there. Yes, I am very surprised. This is what I was thinking? Oh my.
Well, so what do you do after you get an inspiration? Do you write it down in a book or what do you do with it?
Well, it all depends where I'm at the moment. I have a little pad in my place in the chapel, and I also have a little pad in my purse. So if I see something or hear something, a comment made by somebody, I write it down, and then I put it in my pocket. And then when I get home, I take it out, and sometimes I start writing on a piece of paper, getting the main ideas down. And then sometimes I just get up and walk away, then come back. Then I open my computer, start typing. I like to take breaks, even if it's to stop writing and then go to my Facebook or go to my email and then come back and then let it sit. Sometimes I go for several days and then come back to it, and it just kind of evolves on its own.
So we're getting lessons on how to become poets. It's a creative art, isn't it?
Right, it is a process, and sometimes it's a long one.
And why did you choose this particular creative art?
I don't think it, I think it more was, it chose me.
How's that?
I don't know, I think that maybe, oddly enough, genetic. I know there are many famous families of musicians, so there's probably a lot of influence genetically and also
Did your mom
environment.
write poetry?
No, my mother sang.
Oh.
And that's one of the things that I try to encourage young writers to do, is to listen to a lot of music, and I do. I listen to one of my heroes, Renee Fleming. I listen to her a lot. In fact, I was listening to her just now when I was on phone duty.
What kind of music does she do?
She does all kinds, opera. She does, her first love is jazz, opera, contemporary, sacred. She's interested. Variety. She just loves it all.
Do you have a goal when you write?
No, I don't. I would get in the way if I did that. Now, that said, I do have several poems I wrote with my agenda. And I think that's all right to have 2 or 3 poems that way. But I think the poem needs to speak on its own. I even have a poem that to Betty with cancer. An interesting little story behind that. And when we were at the other house, one of our associates came to supper, and she had just gotten her second opinion, and because she was concerned, and the second opinion from the doctor told her that she had cancer. She had cancer of the hip, and the first doctor misdiagnosed what she had. And so we were in the supper line, and she turns to me and said, Sister Lou, would you write me a poem? I said, sure. And so I wrote it, and I sent it off to the magazine Byline. And the editor, this was the last poem, the poetry editor, this was the last poem she accepted from me before she too died of cancer, inoperable brain cancer, and her name was Betty. And so I thought that was
Quite a coincidence,
quite a
wasn't it?
coincidence.
Okay.
For Betty with cancer who asked for a poem. Like you, living, I put pen to paper, not knowing where the lines will end. I too do not know where I am going until I get there. But the poem is everything. Road, map, compass, the very engine driving. And so I say to Betty, thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's something. You're giving us another lens through which to see things, because you see things in a certain way and you're expressing it. And thank you for that. Do you have a favorite poet?
Oh, yes. In fact, I have several. One of them is Elizabeth Bishop. I came across an article talking about her, and I was so intrigued. I started reading some of her poems, and it just kind of took on a life of its own. I did a lot of research. I studied her poems. I even listened to her read her poetry. And it was, but what's really funny about her is that she was a consummate letter writer. She only had 100 poems or so published in her lifetime. And as a result, she won the Pulitzer Prize. But her letters, her book of letters is about this thick, and I can use it as a parochial saying goes, as a doorstop. And her letters are quite interesting and very engaging.
I understand that you have had 5 of your poems made into chamber music.
Yes.
Is that true?
That's correct. My first book of poetry, She, Robed and Wordless, just to give you a background of that, several years ago I got an email from my publisher, Kevin Watson, forwarding another email requesting permission to use my poetry for what is called a song cycle. And the composer is James Lee III, a very up-and-coming composer. And the community granted permission, and the first performance was in New York City in Y92, and it's the Jewish equivalent to the YMCA. And it's been as an institution in New York for over 100 years or more.
That's interesting.
Yes, and the performers were, it was for a trio, and the performers were Anthony McGill, who is the principal clarinetist for the New York Philharmonic, Maya Hung, who is a 2-time Grammy nominee, and Susanna Phillips, a soprano, who has sung in some 30 different operatic roles, including singing at the Metropolitan Opera. And so there were 5 more concerts. One was in Cleveland, which I got to attend along with Sister Irma, and I got to meet Anthony and Maya. Susanna could not attend as she was ill, and the soprano was Elena Peroni, which I got to meet, and it was just a delight to get to meet these lovely people.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yes, it's wonderful.
Wow.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. And how did you get your start? Do you have a favorite word?
Not really. I think the Oxford Dictionary, International Dictionary, is my favorite word, with all of the words there.
Every word is important to you.
Every word is important. Even I like to reuse, I should say, cliches, and put them into a different context. I even respect profanity, not for its own sake. I don't particularly want to use that, but I can see it used in novels and mysteries and murder mysteries and movies of murder mysteries and that kind of thing. With having to do with a character, that it reveals a character. I would assume that a serial killer would not exactly use the word tiddlywinks. That would not be appropriate for his character. And if it is there to develop character, to move the plot along, then yes, that is important and needs to be respected as such.
Well, you've given us some good ideas on how to become poets ourselves. We hope that we can be as colorful as you are and as descriptive. You have allowed us to enter your world for a little bit and look through your lens. So now it's our turn to let us see what the book is, Writing the Stars. And can you tell us where we can get it?
Surely. You can obtain Writing the Stars from my publisher, Kevin Watson, at Press 53. The email address is kevin@press53.com, or you can call him at 336-770-5353. And you can also get it on Amazon, and Barnes & Noble's is now online, and you can get it there, $17.95, and I'm sure there's some level of shipping and handling costs as well.
Thank you, Luella. And we will certainly remember all these things that you've taught us about poetry. God bless you. And
God bless you, and
all.
thank you. And thank you, too, for watching.
3, 2, 1, out.
Yes.